We are on Lori Vallow's revenge tour. It is day 3. At this point, I've only seen up to lunch, and I have absolutely no doubt that Lori is doing this to have revenge on anyone she can. She is going to have so many objections in this part for harassment. Let's get into it. Lori began the day by complaining about her constitutional rights. I have a constitutional right to due process under the 14th Amendment. Yesterday, this court allowed the state to transform a witness into an expert witness. Lori wants the homicide detective's entire testimony struck and the jury told to ignore his testimony. The judge asked how his decision to let him be a witness violated her rights. Lori then said she stood by her statement but doesn't want to argue. Trust me, her idea of not arguing goes away real quick. Now, Livestream seems to have missed all of this exchange. Thankfully, people are in the courtroom. I highly recommend Nate Eaton, by the way, for anything that isn't caught on camera. He is doing an amazing job. So now we get right into Lori's questioning of the witness that she wanted struck. Daniel Coons, the detective who is very trained in firearms. Lori asks basically the same questions as yesterday about stippling. Lori is extra fired up today. You can tell right off the bat. Witness says that stippling still follows what he believed happens. Talk of the medical examiner report saying it was 2 to 4 feet away. Lori asks if a muscular man like her husband coming at you 2 to 4 feet would be a threat. Objection, speculation. Lori snaps at the judge about how she is asking based on him being a firearms expert, but the objection is sustained. Remember, she is doing this in front of the jury. She is not, I'm going to be honest, anything where you go, well, maybe she thinks she can win, I'm throwing it out the window. She doesn't think she can win. This is a revenge tour. I'm calling it now. Judge said it leads to a legal conclusion which confused Lori. There was no video of her husband being shot. Lori asked if the detective knew Alex Cox and her husband played golf together and were friends. Objection. Relevance. Sustained. Lori tells the judge she is going somewhere with this, and the judge lets the witness say he doesn't know. Lori says, when investigating my life, you didn't come across this information. Objection. Relevance. Sustained. Lori asked if he knew her husband's wishes for his funeral. Objection. Relevance. Sustained. Lori asked if he learned in his investigation that her husband listed Alex Cox as one of his 5 best friends. Objection. Relevance. Sustained. By the way, just so you know, I might seem a little extra fired up today. This is a wild thing. I'm feeling a little sick. I was kind of sleepy. This woke me up. Witness didn't read the other reports from the case. Lori has him follow up on his own report. He recognizes it. Lori asked him to read what he said about a shored wound in the report. Objection. Hearsay. He explains shored wounds in his own words instead. Projectile is up against a firm surface, like possibly certain clothing. Lori asked if the witness is aware her husband was wearing a $200 bamboo workout shirt. Lori asks if he knows bamboo is a heavy-duty fabric and he hasn't done research into the fabric type. Lori asks if that fabric could have caused a shored wound, and he said it could have contributed, but that's not the reason it happened in this case, since the body was against the floor. The witness says the shirt didn't appear tight against her husband. Lori doesn't like that. It needed to be a tight-fitting shirt for it to possibly be anything to do with shoring. He says it wasn't tight. Lori questions why they didn't investigate the strength of the shirt he wore. He doesn't know if that shirt could have caused a shored wound at all. The shirt wasn't investigated because it wasn't form-fitting and tight. Lori keeps asking if the shirt caused a shored wound. Objection again. Lori asks if any fabric could. Objection sustained. Lori repeats again with the objection sustained. She doesn't care anymore. I want to make that very clear. Lori is fired up. Lori doesn't give a shit. Lori asks where his shirt is. He says in evidence he believes he saw the shirt twice and didn't test it. The wood floor wasn't tested for fragments of the projectile because the projectile was intact and no one requested the testing. He knew they were in a rental house. Lori asks if the defect in the floor could have been already been there, and the witness says not in his opinion. Lori says, but it could have. Objection. Asked and answered. Sustained. Lori tries again, asking about other divots. Objection, but the judge lets her do it. He says this divot was larger and unsealed, which basically is saying this is a new divot that hasn't been treated. Lori brings up an image of the defects and asks if there's there's much difference between the two defects. A witness says one is a wood grain defect, the other is an actual defect in the board. That one's from the bullet. Lori again asked if it was tested. Objection. Asked and answered. It's the judge agrees with the objection, but lets him answer anyway because it doesn't matter. Yes, it was not tested. I think the judge giving her leeway here was a mistake. It's going to bite him because now she feels she can get past the objections, and we're going to find out about that. She tries again, saying if he knows it's from the bullet, objection sustained. The other bullet in the baseboard had white paint on it from the baseboard and wasn't tested. Lori wants the actual projectile that hit the floor, and it's given to the witness. So the witness now actually has the bullet. Lori is asking again that it wasn't tested. Objection. Asked and answered. The bullet is slightly deformed after hitting something. Lori asks how the bullet got out from under her husband if he was on the floor. And at this point, the detective, I'm sorry, I just have to word it this way. He explains how physics works to Lori because it makes perfect sense. And I say to Lori as well, because normally when there's something technical that might be a little confusing, this witness seems to turn to the jury to make sure they understand. He's just looking at Lori because Lori's the only one. No one is confused about physics. The bullet was about a foot or more away from the body. Lori asked about him not confirming another alternative. He said his job was to collect information. Lori goes to the list of everything she talked about, essentially getting asked and answered objections sustained for everything. So literally, she has a list of everything she's covered, and she's just asking the same thing that's already been answered. It was nonsense, and I wasn't going to write it all out individually. Just know she had a prepared list. State says they are going to start asking for questions to be struck because Lori is getting outrageous already, and it's going to get worse. He didn't contact the company that made her husband's shirt about the shirt. Lori asked if her husband could have been shot standing and the bullet followed the path, and the answer is not in his opinion. He wasn't at the police department when Lori was interviewed. He didn't look at Alex's wound. They didn't swab Alex's hand for gunshot residue because he said he was the shooter. He didn't know if Lori or Tylee's hands were swabbed for gunshot residue. Did he know for a fact that Alex shot the gun? And he said that he did for all the evidence he had. So all you know is that if my husband was shot 2 times by that gun at my residence and he passed away. The witness says they know more. Lori's getting real testy. The witness says he doesn't know when Alex was shot. Lori says he doesn't know if he was on the floor. Do you? The witness says he does. Lori says he doesn't know when my husband passed away, and he doesn't. And I have a little note here. I'm starting to wonder if she's going to go with it wasn't a conspiracy because Charles Vallow was shot and killed by Tylee. And they can't allege a conspiracy with Tylee because they haven't presented any evidence of that. I really think that might be what happens. She's really trying to pin the blame on Tylee. I know I'm making a lot of assumptions, and in my previous video, I assumed that she was trying to pin it all on Tylee. I'm still going down that. I'm still going down it that she's trying to pin it on Tylee, and it's a revenge tour. I think this is partly her revenge tour against Tylee. I'm going to be honest. She is going to go after everyone. That is my opinion. I would love to know yours. I want your comments. Let me know. I think this is a revenge tour. I'm more certain than ever after what I saw so far. Redirect. So this is the state. Crime scene techs picked up items and he observed it being collected. If someone finds something, they have to bring it to his attention so he can see it. The gun is brought up and they are explaining how the extractor and ejection ports work on a gun. They use a diagram with the reference points to give an idea about how things were at the scene. Talk of casings bouncing and rolling. They show where the shooter was supposed to be standing. The witness says stippling was never in the medical report. At the autopsy, the medical examiner never mentioned stippling. He was told the shooter could have been as close as 2 feet away. Muzzle to chest, and then the prosecutor physically goes up with like a string or something and measures how far that would be. So the jury got to see how close that would be. He says that makes perfect sense with what they saw at the scene. They give the wood to the jury, so the jury has the physical wood from the floor. They talk of the defect on the wood and how it's fresh, while other defects didn't appear to be so, which remember, they get to see that. The defect indicates the path of travel, the angle of entry of the bullet, and the ground is only consistent with him being on the ground. So basically, the state asked what would have happened if the shooter was lying down and the man shot was standing. He said the bullet would have went into the ceiling. So there's been this thing where Lori has questioned, you don't know which shot was first, but the trajectory means the only way that the shot went into his abdomen would be either A, the shooter was on the ground firing up, or he's above firing down. But the issue is, if it was up, the bullet would have went into the ceiling, which is not what we saw. Therefore, we know where it went. They talk about the bullet in the baseboard fitting the path of him standing upright. He got briefed at the scene. He explains how you investigate a crime scene. You let the evidence fit for itself, not fit the story you are told. Which is probably, Lori's probably her personal vendetta against this guy. I told you what I wanted you to investigate, and you didn't do it. You didn't follow my story. A lot of this is repeating what they already said yesterday and today. I think partly due to Lori, and I assume partly this is a new day. This is a chance for the state to refresh the jury. Brace yourself. Get yourself your Sarah Boone-sized bottle of wine. You're going to need it. The next witness is the woman Charles went on a date with the night before he was murdered. This will be Lori's first interaction with a female witness in the case, and a first interaction with someone who you could reasonably say she's on a revenge tour with. You're going to see. But the state's up first. Nancy Jo Hancock. She met Charles on an LDS dating site, and they talked on a website and later by phone. They met in early July. They texted a lot. They talked for hours on the phone, one time over 3 hours. She knew he was in the process of a divorce. He wasn't living with his soon-to-be ex-wife. They decided to meet. She knew he traveled a lot. Charles got detailed about his life. She knew Charles had children. He spoke of Lori Vallow, his wife. She had never met Lori Vallow. Lori, objection leading before the next question even got out. She was so excited to say this, it sounded like she was out of breath. It's very noticeable how she said this. Like, the speed of her getting it out sounded like she couldn't do it fast enough. That was my first worry with this witness. Lori thinks asking yes or no is leading, and the judge has to explain it isn't. Charles talked about why he was separated from his wife. She knew issues have been going on for months, but more intensely since the beginning of the year. He talked in detail about his life with Lori. She heard a lot of things that were outside of the LDS belief. That is going to be things like the reincarnation stuff and the zombies, I assume. He thought Charles... She thought Charles was strangely calm and kind to Lori, even though what they were going through. She knew about JJ and him living with Lori. Why did you keep talking to him? He was kind, funny, good banter. He seemed pretty awesome. She didn't think they were exclusive, and he even shared some images of people sending him photos and then asking for money. She met him in person only once on the 10th of July, 2019. They went to a restaurant and talked till it closed and then talked more outside. Charles was in Arizona to see JJ and was so excited to see him. He was looking for a place to live and was supposed to meet with Adam. He was supposed to meet with her the night of the 11th as well, the witness. Charles was physically fit. Charles was like a kid on Christmas morning excited to see JJ, and she does appear to tear up a little bit saying that. He never used derogatory names about Lori. She was shocked with how kind he was about everything he said about Lori. He talked about his life insurance policy and talked about his life. He told her he changed the beneficiary to Kay, and she suggested he tell Lori he changed the beneficiary due to his worries for his safety. He chuckles and said that was probably a good idea. She doesn't know Lori Vallow or any of their family. They planned to meet the next day. She tried to text him but didn't get a response. She called and didn't get a response. She was puzzled and wondered how she misunderstood the date so much. She didn't know he was shot and killed. She learned he was killed in December from a news program. She learned it was the day after they went on the date. She told the police after she found out. I think it was like 2022. She said she told the police or talked to the police, but she told the police. Lori's cross. Charles Vallow stated he was going through a divorce, but she didn't have a way to verify that. Now, the way I write this here, I want you to understand. I write a lot of it with just the answer for my own sake with keeping notes and keeping this video rather short. Lori is very angry. This is something I would suggest you find this cutout of it and you watch yourself after this video, because whatever you think her attitude is, it's probably worse. Lori asked if it surprised her later to learn they were not in the process of a divorce. Lori, holy shit. Lori is cheating on her husband with a married man, plots to kill her husband, does so, and then has the gall to paint Charles as the bad guy, this woman for the bad guy, for going on a date when her and Charles are obviously separated. The witness repeated that he was in the process of a divorce. Lori says he wasn't. The witness just responds, okay. She says she doesn't remember if it said on the website he was divorced. She asked if she would have gone on the date knowing he was still married. She said maybe not this much married, but it was just a dinner. They weren't sleeping together. Lori asked if she goes on dates with married men. Objection, argumentative, and harassment. I'm going to be honest. The judge looked fed up. He even paused for a moment, like he was thinking about what to do. Sustained. Lori asked angrily to the judge, doesn't she have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she's already testified to? And the judge says you can cross her for what she's already testified to. She went on a date with Charles knowing his divorce wasn't finalized. Lori says the divorce wasn't started. There's a lot of Lori just interjecting in this. In the text messages, she asked if Charles was a good kisser, correct? Witness says yes, because why not? But objection, relevance, and harassment. The judge sustains for relevance and hearsay. Lori asks, so are you trying to tell me you went on one date with my husband and he told you all the details of our lives? The witness says I am telling you the truth. Lori asks rather angrily, and this is a key moment, so you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me? And the witness responds, don't flatter yourself. No, we didn't spend the whole time talking about you. The key thing is there, the don't flatter yourself. I have to just let that in. Like, Lori. This is it. She feels like Sarah Boone did on the stand at her sentencing. Except she's letting her anger be visible, right? This is her revenge tour, just like that was Sarah's revenge tour. As we saw from Sarah's full statement, she actually planned to go after everyone and cut it down, and then released it anyway because it was her revenge tour. Lori asks what else they talked about. Oh, Lori says you knew about me. She says I knew what I testified to. Lori asks what else they talked about on the date, and the witness says lots of things. Lori says like what? Life, kids, the church, lots of things. Did he tell you about the 4 other children? He did. She asked about Tylee, and the witness says she doesn't recall specifics, and Lori says, I'm sure you don't. Objection to the comments, testifying sustained. Again, I think she's going to put, maybe at the end, do the hypothetical, what if Tylee shot him? We were covering for my daughter. She said she knew something. He did something with insurance, but didn't know specifics. They didn't talk about his work at dinner. And he did say he changed his life insurance beneficiary and said how much his was. Lori asked if he said how much hers was, and she said they didn't talk about Lori in that vein. Lori asked if they didn't talk about her at dinner, where did they do it? They said it was on the phone and other things going through with this, and they talked about other things he was going through with the separation. Lori asked if it's common for men she talks to talk about their ex-wives, and she said, yes. I mean, at a certain age, right? At a certain age, you probably have an ex-wife. At the very least, you have some exes. And if you have an ex-wife and you have kids, that's probably going to be discussed. It makes perfect sense. But she replied yes. And Lori replied, interesting. Objected to again, of course. There were some texts after dinner, but she didn't know the time. Lori asked what they discussed. Objection, relevant, sustained. I'm going to guess that those texts I'm complete guess. Those texts might have been like sexual in nature, feeling things out, maybe. And she just wanted to get it in there for her revenge tour. Lori says that Charles told you a lot of things about his wife. What were a lot of things? Witness says what I testified to. And Lori wants to know exactly what it was. And the witness asks, can I do a narrative then? Sidebar time. The jury is excused. There's technical difficulties, so I don't think the headsets and white noise machine worked. And the judge asked Lori if she really wants the witness to answer this question, because you're opening a really big door. And Lori says she wants it, and the state's not going to object. You're not going to stop your enemy while they're making a mistake. You don't interrupt them. And at this point, it was lunch break. So, yeah, that's my first. It's the revenge tour, right? Like, I know people have been wondering, like, how is she going to react when a woman's on the stand? I can't imagine all of this is just because it's a woman. This is a revenge tour. This is part of her revenge. I think that's clear. And now that this is clear, the question is the judge going to start shutting it down? Because I think something should have been done before it reached the point it did with this witness. And Lori's going to start in on her again? I don't know what happens after this. We're going to have to see. I'm hoping the judge tamps down what she does. And don't get me wrong. The judge doesn't do it. It becomes a much more entertaining trial. I get more views. Everyone gets more views. And it becomes a spectacle, right? But I think, in fairness, it's not okay for her to treat people this way. And if she can do it with this witness, she's going to do it with more. It's going to get worse. And not only that, remember, after this, there's another trial. There's going to be another batch of witnesses she can bring up and do the same thing too. And we know Lori does have defense witnesses that have now been subpoenaed. Those people have to deal with Lori. So I'm going to end the video here for this part, and I'll be back with the next one. Lori begins by asking the witness that she saw on TV that Charles Vallow had died, which is correct. Lori then says, you saw Kay Woodcock on that show and reached out. The witness says, that's not correct, but I did reach out to Kay Woodcock after finding out Charles died. She had spoken to Kay once, texted here and there, other things. She doesn't know what she can say. Let's be honest. These other things are going to be the murder of Tylee and JJ. 100%. And she doesn't know what she can say there. The texts weren't turned over with Charles, but she believed they all had them because they were on Charles's phone. She would have given them if asked. This witness hasn't turned over any conversations to the state. She has spoken to the prosecutor once in person and one phone call, texts about logistics to get there, more than 10 texts. Lori is weirdly focused on the amount of text. Maybe she's going to say, it's a vast conspiracy against me or something. Met with the prosecutor maybe an hour or an hour and a half. She spoke to Adam Cox, because she ran into him at a pickleball tournament. She says she recognized him from the media about Lori. The witness said hi. She showed him who her grandson was. She didn't think Adam knew who she was, and she told him her name, and Lori asked if he recognized it. At this point, there's a pause, and the witness goes back and changes how she originally spoke to Adam Cox. His picture had actually come up on a dating site, but with a different name. So she messaged the account saying if someone is going to use someone else's picture, they should use someone other than Adam Cox. That is how she brings up her hands and goes, met Adam. Lori asks if she knows what perjury is. Objection. Argumentative. And harassment. Sustained. Witness visibly shakes her head at Lori's nonsense during this moment while the judge sustains it. She spoke to the brother a couple of minutes at the tournament. Only that message on the dating app. She says maybe he messaged her back, but it wasn't a continued conversation. It was one interaction. Lori asked if she scheduled a date with Adam Cox, and she did not. She was asked if she ever spoke to Brandon Boudreaux. She says, yes, he attends the church, her daughter does, and he happened to be at her daughter's house briefly. She only knew about it because the daughter told her. They knew because they know the story. This woman and her daughter, I'm quoting this, know the story. But they didn't speak to Brandon. She didn't speak to Brandon. And they were both there, but she wouldn't call it really a meet. This woman knows everything, right? This woman is trying to not mention the murder of the kids. The witness has spoken to law enforcement detective Moffitt. The interview was in 2020, maybe April, lasted about 45 minutes on the phone. I think I in my notes last time, I was confused between 2020 and 2022. It was 2020. I wrote it down wrong. Met with prosecutor about 5 weeks ago. Lori asked if the witness is aware that Lori didn't know Charles was on dating apps and meeting other women. Objection, speculation, sustained. Lori asked if Charles said Lori was under the impression they were separated. And the witness said he was under the impression you were having an affair. So him moving on was a natural effect from that. She said, he told you that? Yes. She met Charles on July 3rd and dated July 10th. That's when they went on the date. She knew Charles for a week. Lori asked if she had no contact with him after that. The witness said, well, he was dead, so clearly I had no contact with him. She reached out after finding out he was dead from TV. She asked about talking to Kay Woodcock. Objection, asked and answered, but allowed. She said she reached out to give condolences for her brother and to explain she had dinner with him and knew how much he loved JJ and how excited he was to see him in the morning. And Lori interrupts her with almost like a mouse squeak, is the way I would describe it. Thank you, that's enough. I can't even do it. It was so light. Contracted her through Facebook. State keeps objecting because these are all asked and answers. Lori is trying to give a recap. Lori tries to say she met with police on a certain day, and she says she didn't give that date, and it was on telephone. And at this point, we're at redirect. The witness is the one who reached out to the police. She was surprised because the police would have seen her messages with Charles. She knew of Kay from talking to Charles. And this is another thing, right? Like, if they had contacted her right after his death, Lori might have been arrested and charged in his murder before the kids were killed. Like, a lot of people have a lot of anger at the police. This is another moment. This man was on a date with a woman. What did he tell her? They didn't even reach out. The state asked if she was shocked he was dead. The witness gets a bit emotional and has to be careful to say his face came on in reference to a case, and shocked was my understatement. Again, my expectation is they were talking about the murdered children, and then his face came up, and she probably had a whirlwind of emotions. She hasn't contacted people to verify what Charles said was accurate. She is just saying what Charles told her. Some of what he told her. She said she hasn't told the police everything because she expected she would be interviewed again because he told her so much. She didn't talk to Adam about anything with the case. Saw him a week and a half ago, maybe testifying. They were going to testify at some point, but no details. She met with the prosecutor. They went through what she told police and was told to just tell the truth. Charles left an impression in that week that she knew him. She was asked a lot on cross about dating a married man. But where was your opinion of where his relationship was with Lori? And she said that he knew they started the process of divorce, they reconciled, but he was starting the process again and had contacted an attorney about it. He was done with all the craziness, and this was all known by her before the meeting. He told her the whole year of 2019 what happened. She believes meeting with a divorce lawyer was recent. She told him no one would be serious with him until he was further into a divorce, including her, but she did want to see him again because it was fun. There was a jury question the witness didn't know they could ask. The judge asked, did Charles ever express to you verbally any indication of stress? Definitely, he was worried that, and the judge cuts her off. So she was probably going to say worried that Lori was going to have him killed. But the judge cut her off, and no more follow-ups from either side. Court recess. And I do kind of wonder if Lori might actually want a mistrial at some point, because I am fully on board this is a revenge tour. And she tried to get a bunch of people subpoenaed. Some people got accepted. Some people got denied. Some people didn't get the subpoenas. So maybe what she'll do is try to get through as many witnesses that she wants to, grill on the stand that she can. And then whenever she reaches that point that she can't get the other people she wants, try to trigger the mistrial, restart, re-grill them, get new people. I guess it's going to depend on how much she wants a revenge tour versus how much she wants to go back to prison and be out of the jail. Now, during this recording, I'm going to double check, and I'm going to hope it's acceptable. If it's not acceptable, I'll re-record. My neighbor is apparently trying to mow with a lawnmower that sounds like it is eating the ground. There's something wrong with it. I think I've been able to dampen it quite a bit. Maybe you can't hear it. Let me know, I guess. It shows up on my software. That's why it's annoying me. But if you see this, I think it's low enough, and I hope it was. And I apologize if it wasn't low enough and it did distract. The next witness is Christina Atwood. She is a member of the LDS Church. She met Lori Vallow at church. She knew Charles Vallow through church. She had more contact with Lori than Charles. She also had contact with Lori while in Hawaii on a trip because Lori and Charles at that time lived in Hawaii and Charles wasn't home. She identifies Lori in the courtroom. The Hawaii visit was in 2015. Lori's kids were with them. JJ and Tylee lived with them. She knew of her son Colby before Hawaii. She didn't know Charles's other children. They visited for a few hours in Hawaii. She learned Lori and Charles moved back to Arizona later. She saw both Lori and Charles at the temple. Lori invited her to go to Hawaii late fall or summer of 2018, she said. She was interviewed by detectives, and she told the detectives it was the beginning of 2019 that Lori wanted to go to Hawaii. The state asked the witness, did Lori say why she wanted to go to Hawaii? She doesn't recall. State asked if her memory when speaking to police would have been better. She says yes. And this is going to be a recurring theme with this witness. They asked her to listen to the audio from the interview she did. She seems to have either forgotten or doesn't want to talk about certain embarrassing aspects of what she may have believed or been involved with. But there's prior interviews which would have been more accurate, more recent memory. They play the audio from the interview just for the witness. We don't get to hear it. She confirms it was her talking to the detective. She remembers the invitation being prior, but was referencing something else in 2019. The witness just seems a little confused about the time frame, but she was invited to go to Hawaii and couldn't go. In 2019, Lori reached out to her about things going on in her life, including her marriage. She was upset with Charles. She was not living with him. She said she had gone to Hawaii and was keeping it a secret. Charles was in Texas with JJ. Tylee was with Alex. This is kind of important because right there we get, she's not even with her kids. She indicated Charles tried to get her temple recommendation taken away, so she left. She doesn't recall if Lori said she didn't want Charles to know. Her memory would have been better when talking to the police. If she told the police she didn't want Charles to know, she would have been truthful. She doesn't know about her going to Idaho until December 2019. Anytime I hear Idaho, bells ring, because everyone is basically waiting. Are we going to find out about the kids, or is the jury going to find out about them? She doesn't know how long Charles didn't know where she was. She learned she was back in Arizona at some point, and she was invited to a group. The witness was invited to a group. The meeting was Zalima, Melanie Gibb, Nicole Earl, and Serena Sharp. She doesn't recall who invited her, but it was at Zalima's. She knew Lori and Charles were still separated, not living together. She believed JJ was still with Charles in Texas and Tylee with Alex. Lori was also living with Alex. She had only met Nicole Earl before this meeting. Lori talked about dark spirits plaguing Charles. The witnesses asked if she said Charles was possessed by dark spirits. She says she doesn't recall. The state brings up what she told detectives in April 2021, which was, she said this was the first time she heard about him being possessed, and she listens. I think she listened, but she confirms that, if she said it, that's it. She can't remember when they met, maybe twice that week on evenings. Serena was from out of state. She recalled telling police Charles had a dark spirit. She doesn't recall saying Charles was possessed by a dark spirit and that there was a name for it. She doesn't recall and then listens to the audio again. At this point, whoever is running the main feed seems to have screwed up. There is no sound on any that I could find of the channels covering the trial. So we have to go off people that were there in person. And what's sad is this is a very important part of the trial. I would say this might be one of the defining moments of the trial that people are even watching to hear about. She recalls she told police an evil spirit possessed Charles, but couldn't remember the name. Christina remembers Lori talking about Charles being possessed on more than one occasion. Lori was very open about the possession. Remember, all of this I'm getting from, actually, this is from Nate Eaton, who's in there in person. We do get audio again later. Christina remembers Lori having 2 cell phones and a landline. Lori was not working, and Christina never knew Lori to actually work. Lori talked to the witness about her castings. They would pray for dark spirits to be cast out of someone. Christina saw Lori pray for the evil spirit to leave Charles. Witness doesn't remember if people were assigned different elements for the casting. This is where I'm starting to think a lot of this might be doesn't want to say it rather than doesn't remember, but we continue. June 9th, 2019 at Zulema at Zulema's house, Zulema, Alex Cox, Melanie Boudreau, Nicole Earl, Melanie Gibb, and Lori all got together. There was another woman as well that wasn't named. Witness says Alex Cox was loud and outspoken. She was uncomfortable with what he was talking about. After the meeting, Lori said Charles was still possessed. We were asked to fast and pray for her family. We came together fasting and gathered outside and had a prayer together. I believe Lori was the one who said the prayer, and then we went in and broke our fast and ate and visited. Alex was there. When they broke the fast, Alex said he wanted to just kill Charles. Lori was around for at least one of the times he said it. It was jocular, as I recall. He was standing up and just talking about it pretty loudly. Lori didn't react to the statements, but they upset the witness. Lori said she crushed up some of JJ's medicine and put it into Charles's drink mix. The witnesses asked if it was a significant amount, and the witness said yes and was disturbed by it, but Alex heard this and had no comments. Christina said she didn't stay much longer at the gatherings. The next day, she met with Lori and said, I told her I was very concerned about what had been said, and it was really disturbing. I told her if something happened to Charles, I would go to the police. She said they were just being silly and playing off each other and didn't mean anything by it. She was just being dramatic. She said Lori tried to minimize it and that she had exaggerated the amount of drugs she put into his drink. Then Lori began making statements that go against their religion, such as she didn't need to repent anymore. The witness said they stuck out because according to their religion, everyone but Jesus must repent. So Lori's putting herself on the same level as Jesus. Lori talked of knowing members in past lives. And at that point, the sound is back. So we literally miss all the dark spirit stuff, and then it comes back. Just, ugh. At the last meeting in June, Serena was not there. The witness heard Lori say negative things about Serena when she wasn't there, and she wasn't going to be good after all. Serena previously was in person in a Zoom meeting and then gone. Lori talked negatively. The witness stopped meeting with Lori. She was invited to lunch but got no more invitations after that. She learned Charles was dead by text message. She believed a brother-in-law killed Charles and later learned that it was Alex Cox. The witness then started to go into hearsay. Got stopped by the prosecution. The shooting of Charles was about a month after Alex said he wanted to kill him. After confronting Lori, Lori distanced from the witness. Lori never said she was joking about Charles Vallow being possessed. She never said she was joking about him having a dark spirit. She never said she was joking about the dark spirit having a name. State rests. And then we get Lori. Lori is going to get to question this witness who has talked about her going against the LDS religion. Talk about her talking about dark spirits. All of this craziness. This witness who, if Lori presses, doesn't remember things, right? So maybe Lori can get some amazing statements to help her case, and Lori has absolutely nothing to say. Lori doesn't question her. I'm serious. Lori didn't question the witness. Well, people were wondering, how's she going to treat this female witness? Well, I didn't see that coming. The first one basically kept calling her out, saying she's for doing adultery, right? This one she won't even speak to. After that, there is a sidebar, of course, that we don't get to hear. And court ends. I mean, I was wondering, like, if Lori wanted to question her, it was obviously going to have to go into the next day. I expected something. So we've got our first taste. The jury's got their first taste of the dark spirits. The jury's got a taste of Lori abandoning her children. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because we're still waiting for if the jury is going to find out that they were killed and that Lori was convicted of their murder. Well, we are edging, right? We are right up there. We are talking about the first female witness. It was, I mean, she talked about knowing about Charles's death because she watched something on the kids' death, but she couldn't say that part. This one, we're talking about Idaho. This Idaho was mentioned by that one fire department guy too, because he had to testify in Idaho. I still think that Lori is doing a revenge tour. I think she's doing a revenge tour, and I think we're gonna really, really feel that on her own witnesses. But man, what a day. I hope the video's fine. I had that one segment, it sounded fine, but there was loud noises outside. I hope that was fine. I'm trying to get it done as quick as I can to get it to you. Just what a day. What a day. I am blown away. I have so much I want to say that I don't know how to say it. That's kind of why I'm sitting here, because this was a terrible day for Lori's case, right? But I hesitate to even say her case matters to her, because I really think it's just a revenge tour. I'm on that. I'm on board. I am on board that this is a revenge tour. I am on board that any pretense of this being a case is purely so that it's allowed to continue, so her revenge tour doesn't stop. It is the side effect. And after this, she gets another one. If this gets a mistrial, she gets another one. Remember, there's only 2 alternates left. They had someone stick around who was texting during the trial while a witness was up. That sounds like a perfect reason to kick them off the jury, but they probably don't want to do that because they're so close to not having a jury. Let me know your thoughts. See you in the next video. I'm gonna be there for this premiere, but after that I gotta step away for a bit. This was just a wild day.